This is basically the effect I created as per the VFX, as for the VFX test, as per the VFX guideline that was given to me. So basically this effect is made up of 6 components. First is the aura, and next is the shock effects, the shock arcs, and the third is the glow effects on the player itself. The next is the weapons, the sword which has aura around it, and so and the shocks effect which the player casts from itself to the ground. So my effect is it's all in this one folder itself. And here is the map. So I'll first play it. So here, um, one is the aura, and you can see the glow effect material applied to the player itself. Next is the sword, and the aura vibing around the sword. Um, and there are like sparks, the shock waves coming from the player and going through the 3 spheres, which I created as an extra from my side. Um, and it has some small arcs, shock arcs around the player, and that's a micro effect. So I'll go through first, um, and this effect works well with the animation skeleton itself. It's attached to the blueprint of the Unreal. So I'll open the Unreal third person character. So I did some blueprinting stuff and tried to get Niagara in the third person mode itself. So here are the Niagara effects attached and the materials. So first I'll go through um, the glow materials. So this is the player glow material itself. So it has first, this is the base color which can be changed during the runtime also. And this section is for the outer glow, the personal mode, which value, like how depth do you want it, how which color, and also like the opacity of the personal mode can be changed through in the runtime. So this is the main material, and I've created material instance of this. So these all the values are exposed to the user itself. So next node is the world position offset, which gives off the spikes. Like there are some spikes around the players. Um, for example, for the player itself, like here you can see there are spikes on the player character, some blue colored spikes, which is the material itself, and which comes from this material, which is the player glow material. And so this is the system for that. This is for the inner glow. So there is a texture, as you can see, um, which has some pinkish color emerged lurked on it, and so this node that creates everything. So I used lurk node to blend in between the masking of the inner and the outer ones, and applied a texture which I used from the game engine itself. And so you can get this depth here, like the bluish icy texture glow on the player. So that comes with this. And I have exposed many parameters to the users. So mm, for example here, I can change the divisions of the spikes, which is like can be adjusted during runtime. This is the personal mode, like with how much you want it, and this is like you can see it can become fully or just at the edges you want. And this is the height of the spikes, like how greater you want those shock spikes to appear. And this is the lurk, which is like it gets randomized between the horizontal and vertical spikes which I've added in the material. And this is the opacity, which can control like how bright you want the player to be and all. This is the shell size. This is the world So I use VOP, world position offset, for this material. So it casts on the player itself, and this is the speed of how you want the panning, the opacity panning of the material to be. So yeah, that's it for the player outer glue. No, this is the inner glue, which has like three things in one, even some small spikes, some color variations and stuff. Um, and next is the shock effect. So shock effect is here, the shock arcs. So this one uses the skeleton mesh itself. So I have given the skeleton mesh itself. So it's casting on the player. As you can see, the outer shocky arcs here, it just casts on the player itself instead of a preset. And so there I have exposed many parameters, as during the runtime you can change. Uh, so during the runtime you can change the color itself, like here. You can make it to red sparks or pink sparks or blue sparks or green sparks. And even you can randomize, like if you don't want any sparks, just turn it off to 0, or like want some sparks, some small sparks. So just two of them are glowing itself. And like if you want more sparks, just change the values. And yeah, so this is user exposed and can be changed during the runtime itself. So for the Niagara, I have used skeleton mesh module, which takes the skeleton mesh itself and added some noise force for the curly things. So the material I've used is this one. So I have the sine nodes for the nice lerping stuff, like so it gets on and off sinely. I've used dynamic parameters so I can expose these parameters and animate them in Niagara system itself. Um, and yeah, this is the material for the sparks which come. And I've created the texture myself in Photoshop. So this is the texture. I used some hand painting stuff for this texture and imported in Unreal, and that's how the sparks works. The next thing, and some noise textures also. Um, and the next thing will be the aura effect, which is around the player. So here is the aura. It uses GPU because it's emitting from the player. So here again, it's taking the shape of the player itself instead of a preset. I'm using here a mesh reproduction sprite, and the previous it was a skeleton sprite. Um, and so the material for this, so this is the instance I'm using, and the main material is this. I've used panned some noise textures along, two noise textures, and tried to blend them so we get this the waspel effect, and gave it to the opacity and wrote a particle color, like added a particle color so I can control the color of this effect in Niagara itself. So in Niagara system, here I have uh, I've exposed two user values, the color and the randomization, to the user so it can be changed during the runtime. I've added a z velocity, so it looks like it's going, it has a randomized velocity in this axis, z axis. And I've scaled the sprites so we can get this, so the sprites are not in a singleton. So if I switch this off, you can see like all the sprites are just of a single shape. But if I do this, you get a nice wispy effect. Also, I've added point attraction force. It allows to uh, make all the particles attract to a single point and in a very random direction, and some curl noise to give it nice aura effect. And I have manipulated the dynamic parameters which I exposed from the materials. And yeah, So that's it for the aura one, which is this effect. And this is also totally randomizable, and the color can also be changed. So if I change the colors, it's purple, and now it's getting nice dark purple aura around it instead of a totally pink one. So this is it for the aura effect. The next one would be the shocks which emit from the ground. So for this, I've used ribbon instead of sprites. So each ribbon takes an endpoint and a start point. So these two endpoints are exposed to the user again. The color is exposed to the user and the jitter amount, how you want the ribbon to waggle. And this is attached to the person, to the third person, and it gets its values of beam n and beam n2 and can be changed. So if I hit play, you see like ribbon amount starts from the spheres and then comes towards the player and they follow the end trail to the player itself. It looks like the shocks are attracted to us. So and for the sword, so there's a sword in the for the effect which I used. Okay, this one. So for the sword, I've imported a sword and used this Niagara effect, which is like giving it a aura-ish effect. Um, and I've attached this manually to the skeleton in the of the third person character, like using sockets and trying to animate those. So from here, if we go here, you see. So for this, I've used the thumb socket here and added this word externally to this character. And how did I add it to the blueprints? It's by taking its sampling values, like it should be the hand R, so the effect will start. So this is the socket name, I get it, and I've done some blueprinting here. So this is the blueprint for uh, making the sword react with the third person game mode in Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5.1, yeah. Um, so I've also, so if I hit play, the sword also has a outer glowing material on it. So the outer glowing material is in weapon, this one. And it's so same procedure. I use this in Niagara. So this material is at last being put in Niagara effect, and then the Niagara goes in the blueprints. So there are three emitters. First, it's the plane which gives the color, and this is the second plane which is just opposite of it, just to give a little variations in the effects. And this is the material for it. I've used some noise textures, and I've used, so this texture plays the main role, which is one of the exact sizing of the sword. So I've created this texture myself in Photoshop, this one. So so this is how I took a screenshot in Unreal of the sword and then traced it and drew a nice aura texture that you can see in the game. So this is the aura texture which I drew. This I was trying for the player, but yeah, I have to spend some time. So so two things were, I was also trying to mask it before, but I did it in other way. That really worked well. So this is one of the screenshots and how I did them in Photoshop. And yeah, that's it for my VFX test for this aura with sparks and a glow on the character as well as the weapon.